Pope Benedict XVI has ventured out of retirement to publish an essay blaming the Catholic Church's sex abuse scandal on the sexual revolution of the 1960s and church laws that protected priests. His analysis was immediately criticized as catastrophically irresponsible, a conflict with efforts by his successor, Pope Francis, to lead the Church out of its crisis. Why did pedophilia reach such proportions? Ultimately, the reason is the absence of God, Benedict wrote in the 6,000-word essay published in the German monthly Curiosblatt, the Catholic news agency and other conservative media. Benedict traced the start of the crisis to the 60s, citing the appearance of sex in films in his native Bavaria and the formation of homosexual cliques in seminaries which acted more or less openly and significantly changed the climate. He also attributed it to failures in moral theology in that era. My books were hidden away, like bad literature, and only read under the desk. Benedict also faulted church laws that gave undue protection to accused priests. During the 1980s and 1990s, he wrote, "The right to a defense, for priests, was so broad as to make a conviction nearly impossible." As Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, Benedict spearheaded reforms of those laws in 2001 to make it easier to remove priests who abuse children. Benedict took a hard line against clerical sex abuse as the Vatican's conservative doctrine chief, and later as Pope, defrocking hundreds of priests accused of raping and molesting children. Francis has blamed the scandal on a clerical culture in the Church that raises priests above the laity. At his retirement in 2013, Benedict had said he would devote his remaining life to penance and prayer, leaving Francis to guide the Church. Mixed response as critic questions historical error. He said in the introduction to the essay that Francis and the Vatican Secretary of State had given him permission to publish. The Vatican confirmed it was written by Benedict. Church historian Christopher Belito questioned if Benedict, who turns 92 next week, was being manipulated by others. He said the essay omitted the critical conclusions that arose from the Pope's February sex abuse summit in Rome, including that abusers were priests along the ideological spectrum, that the abuse predated the 1960s, that it is a global and not simply Western problem, that homosexuality is not the issue in pedophilia. It is catastrophically irresponsible, because it creates a counter-narrative to how Francis is trying to move ahead based on the 2019 summit, Mr. Belito said in an email. The essay essentially ignores what we learned there. In fact, records indicate the church hierarchy knew about clergy sexual abuse long before the 1960s, as early as the 4th century. It was also previously more open. In 1741, for example, Pope Benedict XIV wanted it widely known that priests would be punished, so he posted notifications on church doors. The essay was applauded by some on the right. Writing in the Catholic Herald, Chad Becknold praised the intervention as a necessary word from the voice of a father that accurately identified an absence of God as the reason for the crisis. But other U.S. church analysts said the essay was both flawed in content and problematic on a universal church level, exacerbating existing divisions in the church that have emerged between supporters of Francis and Catholics nostalgic for Benedict's doctrine-minded papacy. AP